name's Stephen Archer, and welcome to my podcast, Stephen Asks Questions. I am a independent artist, musician, author. I've done graphic novels. I've worked with some Grammy winners. I've written music for NASA that actually went into space, which is pretty fucking cool. And that's kind of the important stuff about me. If you want to know more, there is a bona fides video in this playlist, and you can learn just otaku amounts about what I do, including all this bullshit behind me. I have made this podcast because many years ago I realized that I really hate small talk, and but I'm totally cool listening to people talk about the things I love. It's great. It's infectious energy, and because I have my fingers in so many pies anyway, sometimes it's stuff that I can actually use for my own things, which is always very cool. So I have hopefully kind of gathered some really interesting people, and I think that I know I learn a lot from them. Hopefully you can too. Also, things are really kind of dark right now, and I think it's really important that we remember, society is people, and there are people out there that are doing this really great shit, and you can too. I mean, you have find the things you love and let it eat you. I think is one of my very favorite ideas ever. I'm not going to have big, long preambles at the beginning of all of these, but this is the first one, so I wanted to kind of get that out there. Also, because of the musician thing, this particular season, I think I've got kind of a higher percentage of musicians than I would like, but stick with it, because a lot of them do very, very cool stuff. That said, I think that there's a great balance of other people. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me for this, and I hope it does something for you. All right, hi. So this is episode number whatever, because I'm not doing these in order, and we're here with my friend Ted, who I met, I guess, through Donna, and they met at a convention 1,000 years ago, I think, in New Orleans. And sorry, I got something in my tooth. He and I see each other once or twice a year when we go through on tour, and we play the show. And then as I'm packing up, we just sit there and bitch about people and art and whatever the current fad of things are, and all of the things that people don't quite get about how all of this works.
Right.
He and I are both extremely angry, and but also he, like myself, is very proactive and has spent his entire life dedicated to doing what he does and what he loves and all that stuff. And we will get into all that specifically. Currently, I think you're still teaching in New Orleans. And I'll begin this the way that I begin all of these, which is first of all, thanks for doing this. What was the first thing that as a kid really got in there and hooked you? And like time for kids is so weird. It can be so when you find something, I think, that does stick with you as a kid, it can seem like it's very all-encompassing thing, even if it's only for a few weeks and whatnot.
I think for me, it was my introduction to comic books, and it was by complete accident. And but because I say complete accident, I think I must have been about, I don't know, I was just maybe 8. I think I was 7 or 8 years old, and my dad had bought me a comic book, and I don't know where he got it from, because he didn't get it from like a store. And shops weren't like they were back then, but it was a Captain America and the Falcon comic book, and I think it came out in 1968, which is why I know it wasn't from a shop or anything like that, because I was born in '67. But it was the first comic book that I laid hands on, and I was aware of comics and things like that, and but I never had any of my own, and so the things that like really kind of engaged me about it, because it was this kind of, point in time in the 1970s. The book was centered around of interesting, ironically enough, or coincidentally enough, I should say, not ironically, it was centered around Nixon's White House presidency during the Watergate scandal, and Captain America was having to. This is when, for people watching nowadays, the whole movie of Captain America and the Winter Soldier was all based around this. It was Captain America was having to come to terms with the government in the country that he believed in had been taken over by zealots. And so that's why I say coincidentally to our current climate.
Right.
And so all of that, the heady story that was behind it went, of course, over my head. And what was engaging about it more than just like the primary colors and the artwork and the story, because he was still fighting supervillains that were hunting him and stuff like that, was of all things, it was that his sidekick was a black man.
That's awesome.
And it was weird because like I remember as a kid,
Did you grow up in South in New Orleans and things like that?
yeah,
So,
and there was yeah, and so integration was just like starting to become a thing. So I mean, I remember went to a Catholic school, St. Francis of Assisi, and we're doing coloring time and stuff like that, and I'm coloring this boy in the coloring book, and I'm coloring him brown, and my teacher had admonished me, was like, what are you doing that for? I was like, because I don't see brown people around here.
right.
So yeah, that's what like grasped me of it, is that he was a major part of this. He was this equal, and he in the movies he's now Captain America. He became Captain America in the comics as well. But it was like wow, I did not have any experiences with black men, but here's a version of it. And so it became really engaging to me because it wasn't something that I saw a lot of in my limited view. Now, as I've gotten older and learned more about the history of Black America and comics and stuff like that, its entry into it was way past anything a 7 or 8 year old kid's going to know.
Do you happen to know who the first black superhero was? Like, I'm
The
not a comics guy, so
Right. The first black superhero is considered historically this character called Lion Man. And but again, depending on which historian you talk to, there's another black superhero, but he was a Western, like he was a cowboy. And so that's why you get different kinds of takes of it, that the Western hero was actually the first black character, major
right,
character. But this character, Lion Man, was the first superhero that had like powers and stuff
right,
like that.
right.
So yeah, it was that, and just of course seeing all this brightly printed colors and things like that got me kind of hooked into comics at that point. So yeah, between that and at that same age, my mother was watching what was new at the time, the original black and white Dark Shadows television show. And so that was also at the same time my introduction to horror and Barnabas Collins, that I would get scared at the sight of the vampire. But when the werewolf character came on, I was actively engaged and didn't run and leave the room. So yeah, literally in the same apartment is when I was introduced to comics and horror, which is, as you know, been kind of what I do now.
Right, right. And so that's pretty much, I mean, just literally just been a complete constant thread through your life. It's been interesting kind of talking to other people and finding that it's like where they kind of lost something and then picked it back up or whatever. But for you, it's just been a whole thing.
Yeah, I was talking to some of my mates that I graduated from high school with, and we're still pretty tight because we were the freaks and the geeks before that was a thing. And it was like we were talking about like how interestingly when we were in high school we all kind of had this thing that we were this trait that we were known for. My buddy Kevin was a writer in high school and stuff like that. Now he's an editor for WebMD, and I always was drawing superhero characters and stuff like that, and I wound up transitioning and publishing my own comic and becoming a professional artist and stuff like that. So it's like somehow our toes are still dipped
Hmm.
in the thing that it was that we did through high school, and as we remained a relative constant. Some of us were like that, and they revisited it, and then and it led them to new branches of. But we all kind of had our toes still dipped into and relatively still kind of do what we did in high school. So I found that was like an interesting observation that wow, we actually kind of grew up doing not exactly what we wanted to do, but pretty darn close to it. That it's still respectable.
Yeah, yeah. It's always amazing to me when I kind of people will say, "Oh, like, what did you want to do when you were a kid?" And I'm like, "Well, book covers, art, music," which is, you know. So yeah, it's weird. I even kind of like I was running around with a mohawk and beginnings of facial hair when I was my senior year. So it's kind of like, yeah, on one hand, hey,
Yeah,
that's cool, you did the thing. On the other hand, how much have you actually grown?
yeah, exactly. It's that when my mates, a couple of my mates, they were the ones that were those kind of trendsetters. They had their hair dyed in back when they used to bleach it and use Kool-Aid powder to dye it,
Hmm.
and because we're as old as mud, and I was not allowed to do any. I was allowed to hang out with these reprobates, but I was not allowed to do any of the things that they did until like 18. When you're 18, then you're
Yep,
legal to do it. Literally, when I became 18, we went to Claire's. My mom took me to Claire's to get my ears pierced.
that's
So it
awesome.
was like done after that. They knew it wasn't a fad, which I really cool. They're just
You
like,
did it the right way. Me, it was just a safety pin, and
well,
then
yeah,
they get
my
infected, and then
friends
eventually
held
they'll
me
stop
down.
being infected, and then you can stick other shit in there.
Yeah, my friends held me down and they were going to pierce my ears. My mom had given me clip-on earrings to wear, and they're like, "No, you sissy." And they're going to literally pierce my
Oh,
ears. And one of them realized, well, actually, no, his mom's going to get really pissed if we do this. We better
that's
not.
pretty cool. Like that's cool that like they were thinking beyond just the moment and the peer pressure thing.
No, and it was yeah, and it was cool that it was that my parents were like, his prefrontal cortex isn't developed yet, so so he doesn't
Yeah,
rush into something. But by the time I was 18, they were like, yeah, he's had years to think about it and he still wants to do it. So and also they lived up to their word. They said so
yeah.
at 18 you can do what you want. So
Parental
yeah,
support really just goes such a long, long way. Like it's something I've talked about now with a few other people, and it's the ones where like my mother took me to the museums in DC anytime I wanted to go to air and space, or she never went. Maybe this art and music thing isn't the best idea, and that matters. I mean, like it's a remarkable thing.
yeah, because I took like a lot of people, they took the aptitude test in high school, and mine came back with art or an ambulance driver.
Huh,
Literally, that was it, ambulance driver. Like,
that's so
wow,
specific.
exactly. It was very specific. And I remember we had to bring the things home to our parents because it was this whole college preparation thing. And so my parents had to be aware of what the high school counselor was going to talk to us about. And I remember my mom and dad looking at me and they're like, okay, we can kind of afford only one art. So you get to choose if it's going to be photography, is it going to be music, or is it going to
Right.
be illustration? I was like, illustration because of my ties to comics.
Mhm.
And so they're like, all right, then that's what you're going to do. So, and any other art you do, you got to pay for yourself. I'm like, all right, it's fair enough. So yeah, it was blessed in those regards to the sport of my parents. And, not everybody, unfortunately, has that, but you and I have discussed this, ad infinitum, which I want to clarify that people that watch this is Steve and I are indeed really angry. And we're very, really, really, indeed, we're very, very, our anger comes from a frustration because he and I have similar roles within our respective field that people that admire what we do or admire us for whatever reason approach us and ask us ad infinitum the same questions all over the place. And it comes back to that kind of if you didn't have the support through your parents, you can still get the support through your peers, but you just got to, freaking do the thing and not worry about the perfection of it. And
Mhm.
that's what he and I argue about. Well, not argue, but you know,
Bond out really.
just at the world while
Yeah.
we're helping pack up and stuff. And
I I heard a really great quote recently. that I'm holding on to, and I keep spewing it at students from time to time. I'm just like, it's anything worth doing is worth doing poorly.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love the idea of that because there are so many things where it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but it exists. I made this thing and here it is, and the next one will be better. But it's a thing. It's done. As opposed to like I was I was talking to again one of my students about it's like Denny's. We all go in our seats like we all go to Denny's, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're sitting there maybe before you can even go out to clubs or bars or whatever, and everybody there's always somebody they're talking about like this is the band I'm going to have, and this is what we're going to be called, and this is what our t-shirts are going to be like, and it would just drive me nuts because I was just like write some songs.
Yeah.
do the band. You don't get to do the fun stuff until you get to do
Right.
the thing.
I usually tell my students it's a key to more immortality. Is that I share with them when my dad when I was going to college because I'm the only person in my family that went to college and I've graduated from 4 different colleges at this point, and it's that he used to take me, and then and as you guys know, like right at the end of Canal Street, there's an intersection, and there's like cemeteries on all 4 sides of the intersection at the end of the streetcar line. Well, I used to pass that every time my dad was taking me into school, and he used to tell me at the stoplight, he'd be like, those graves, son, are filled with people with regret. And it's not necessarily that they didn't create a thing. It could be something as simple as, I regret marrying that person that's buried next to me. I regret not going to Hawaii like I'd always planned to. And it's heavy for like a 21-year-old kid. But I understood what he meant was it's like do the thing, And I tell my students that along with, it's your key to immortality. Like my comic, I've actually literally seen my comic in thrift stores.
Right.
And it's like, again, someone may come along and pick that comic up for like 25 cents and they could read it and they were like, this is total trash. It doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm still out there. It was still
Yeah.
done. And I'm immortal even after I'm dying. Someone is going to keep reading these books as they're passed on from collector to collector. And for someone, it could be the greatest thing they never heard of, and they're going to Google it, and they're like, "Oh man, he's dead." And but it's still there. And so that's why I tell people, it's like, man, fucking take a stab at immortality.
And that's also a really good motivator for doing a good job, like doing the best you can to get because you never know, like if you're ragged out and have to go on stage and do a show, and I was always just remind myself, I'm like, this might be somebody's first show,
Right? Yeah.
and or like this may be that Captain America comic for somebody, or any other, like there's stuff that music that I have loved, that was pretty obscure or like made by some band that just kind of made some stuff and then that was it. And eventually, maybe if you're lucky, you run across them and you're able to like interact with them and they're off doing accounting or whatever. But that means something. That really matters. Like I will say this online, it's like you eulogize the people that are alive. And it's like fan mail, like even, not that I'm at all, famous in the real world, but it's like I still try to do that to, even weird people like people who read books for Audible, or just anytime I notice something, it's like, wow, that's really cool that this whatever this thing is, and that's actually part of this whole thing about just the things that you're passionate about, because you never know, one time somebody recognized me for something and they were like, oh, you wrote this song, and it was like a B-side to like nothing. And I was like, yeah, I did. I didn't know anybody had actually heard that. That's crazy.
I'm sometimes sitting at shows and I have kind of my art resume on my banner because people are going to be looking and say, who the fuck's Tedd Wally? Oh, he did all these things.
Right.
And it invariably it'll always catch somebody's like, oh, wow, you did something for that TV show. I was like, yes, I did. Or you did that movie, or really you did artwork for the Gender Torturers. Like, yes, I did. It's that and you and I have talked about it before in terms of I also do it when someone's sliding my portfolio in front of me. Is that I'm not going to tear them a new one. A lot of people, my peers, like to almost like a hazing sort of thing, and
Right.
it's just like you don't know that you could be the person that says, "Wow, man, this guy." Actually believes I can do it. And he had some really good advice for me rather than, I can remember meeting comic artist Marshall Rogers, and he was tearing up people's portfolios left and right. And they were good artists. And I overheard him saying to a fellow peer sitting next to him, he's just like, yeah, I rip people's portfolios up because that new guy, he could take money off my table if he gets hired. I'm just like,
That's
wow.
so fucked up. That is so messed up. Like, yeah, I met one of my comic heroes, one of the very few, and I was like, hey, I've been really influenced by you. And I handed him, he was like, yeah, I can tell. And I was just like,
Ooh,
cool,
yeah,
thanks, man. Yeah. Um, I mean, think about it just from the opposite point of view. As an artist, as a young artist, the act of putting enough to work together to have a portfolio, that's huge right there.
yeah,
Getting that portfolio into a portfolio and taking it somewhere else, knowing that you're going to be showing it to these other people, is a whole other thing. So, like, having done that, just to have somebody shit on it, like, I am all about, I am all about critique. And I'm like, look, if I'm going to critique your work and you're not crying afterwards, it means I didn't quite do my job. The
yeah,
flip side of that being is that I'm also going to tell you all of the things that work and why. And hopefully, the reason if you are having that stronger response is I'm telling you stuff you secretly know, you just don't like to admit it to yourself.
yeah.
It's never about, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I just want to make sure we both know, are accurately seeing what you've done.
Yeah, and I usually will do that when students will come in and they're like clutching their little sketchbook because it's so tight and so important to them. Like, hey, Mr. Wall, I was wondering if you could look at some of my sketches, and I start flipping through. I was like, oh, well, you're a big anime fan. I can see here Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, and I'll hand it back. It's like, yeah, it's great. It's like and because I can tell the ones that want the feedback and the ones that are, it's
Want
like
somebody to say it's great.
they just want to hear that it's
Yeah,
it's great. And so, usually sometimes they'll say, could you give me some feedback? It's like, well, it kind of depends. What do you want to do with this?
right.
It's because the art field, as far as a professional uh, level goes, it covers so many freaking things
Hmm.
that it's like, I don't mean this, but you small 21-year-old boy, 21-year-old girl, the world is about to explode for you and you don't realize it. There's so much that's out there that you don't even know. So keep drawing your little sketchbook here, but if you want to be serious about it, you got to learn how to draw a figure from the side or from the back. These
Right.
are
Yeah.
you gotta read the actual textbook instead of just drawing the illustrations that are in the textbook. You gotta read what the author's trying to explain to you. This is why it works the way it does.
Right.
So, and I'm never gonna bullshit people.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna waste my own time that way.
Yeah. I had somebody send me some videos to look at that he wanted to put out for the song, and I was like, man, I'm sorry, these aren't good. And I was like, I've been doing this too long to just not tell you that. But
I,
here's why they're not good. And I was like, but to me, all of this is like, I feel like you're making these specifically, the entire function is just so you can say you have a video, as
right.
opposed to making one that's good. It's like you're trying to figure out what the absolute minimum you can do in order so you can do this, so you can say you tried or you did it, but without actually like it's not just about making you feel safer as opposed to actually creating something that does the job.
Yeah, and it's like we are just talking about it is that, it's great, that you want to jump right into all the fun stuff of being in a band, but man, you got to be able to do the shit stuff too.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, you got to approach it with the same zeal that you do with the fun stuff because you don't handle your records too well. Then come time for taxes and stuff like that, man, you're setting yourself up for a fail. And that video is the same way. It's like if video isn't his thing, or they don't want to do it, or they're just not into it. It's like, well, then it's going to show, and it's going to be
Right.
happening. the fun stuff isn't going to matter because people will always remember the kick you missed,
Yep.
and they glaze over all the things that you wind up, sticking the landing on. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And also I'm my one of my favorite things, honestly, is limitations and when you knowing when you don't know what to do and working with it. Like,
yeah,
when we recorded our first set of demos for Ego, we did it all on a 4-track and we did dirty, noisy trip hop because we were recording on a 4-track and we didn't know what we were doing. But we were like, well, we can make this, and at least all of those things will be aesthetically appropriate,
right.
as opposed to trying to push back and do this like really well produced electronica. So,
But yeah, but that's what we were saying is that you just gotta, at least similarly, I'll run into people that they find a million reasons not to do the thing
yes.
instead of the one reason why they should. And experiences and similar to yours is it's that because they have this level of perfection that they want it to be. I've been dreaming about this and planning this for forever, and no, it's got to be just right. It's got, that's admirable and everything, but you don't realize it's keeping you from actually just putting something out there
Right.
and realizing that it's going to be what it is, but you'll get better as it goes along. And I've been using lately. Al Jurgensen, has been fighting and fighting and fighting with sympathy and Twitch, hate, 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 hate. Now he's out on tour with them because someone got in his ear and made him look at it and say, well, man, it's your stuff still,
It
and if you
still
don't like
matters
the
to
way it
people.
came, yeah, if you don't like the way it came out, you are in a position that you could to do it the way you want to do it. It's yours, reclaim it.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's like, don't let that perfection stop you, man. Just fucking do it and learn from the experience of it so that you can start getting that seasoning in you that you know what worked, what didn't work, and it'll keep coming together. You'll get better each and every time. If you don't, that's an actual problem.
Right. Yeah. 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 Like people who are like, well, I've known people who would like do a drawing and they're like, well, I want to keep it because I don't think I can do it again. That's your job. Your job is to be able to do it again. If you can't, that's a problem. One of the,
Exactly.
oh, go ahead.
No, no, no. I'm agreeing with you. Is
Uh,
that
I was going to say, one of the things I have learned over the years is okay. So at one point, a friend of mine was editing. She does editing and does film editing for stuff that like is out there on Netflix and things like that. And she was like really concerned. She was like, I just don't know if it's good. And I was like, haha, that's the fun part. You never get to know if it's good. All you
you
ever
don't
get
get
to know is,
that?
does it function, or does it flow the way you think? Like, technically, does all of this work? Do you feel like you said what you needed to say with this? Everybody else gets to decide if it's good. And you can have parts of it that you like. And there are things I have made where I'm just like, I think this is really cool. But if you expect everybody else to respond to it that way, you're because
Yeah,
you never
yeah. You're
fucking
not made
know. And there's a real
yeah,
good chance you're going to get hurt with that. Like,
yeah, yeah. Always. It's that. I mean, I do it when I'm at shows and people will come up and they'll gush about the book and they'll ask me all and they'll out over the book, and that's fantastic. But it's like, that's not why I do it. I
right.
do it because I can't eat unless I'm creating something.
Yeah.
And them throwing money at me saying, I really love this. This has really spoke to me, stuff like that. Man, that's that extra mozzarella stick in the chicken basket that you weren't expecting. It's just, I've had people do, book reports about me in from other fucking countries. It's like, that was not why I did any of this. I did
Right.
it because I had this idea that I was just like, man, I can't sleep. I'm so excited about this that I'm going to sit there and keep working on it and, look up and she's like, oh shit, it's 3 a.m.
Mhm.
I got to get ready for work. So yeah, it's that, I just do it and put it out there and I'm satisfied with it. It functions the way I need it to function. There's parts of it that I was like, I really like how that page came out, really like how that panel came out, or really like that line of dialogue or whatever. And that's perfectly fine. But I'm not putting it out there saying, man, everyone's going to kerplots when they see
I'm
this.
putting this out to shine on me.
Yeah, no, someone's
Yeah.
going to see it and you're gonna be like, man, this guy's still a hack. I don't know why you got.
I always tell people, I'm like, look, if you're putting your artwork out there and your goal is to have somebody look at it and go, I bet the person who made this is really interesting. Like, they should never think about you until maybe way after the fact. They see a whole bunch of your work and they're like, man, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? Or whatever it is. But like, yeah, it's remarkable to me Well, it comes down to the difference between art and product.
Correct.
And I've seen bands and I've spoken to the people that write their songs, and it's just kind of like, yes, he's like, this guy does this stuff because he's trying to get this market or this market or this market. It's like, man, I'm just trying to write shit that works and it speaks. Do you know who Robbie Williams is?
Yeah.
Okay, many Americans don't, and for people who don't know, he's just a huge pop star in the UK and Europe. Never made it here. Um, he released a record once called "Escape Apology" about 20 years ago that I think is just it's a sacrament. It's fucking beautiful, incredibly well written pop music. Not like bubblegum pop, but like pop. It's rock. It's
Yeah.
songs. And I'm watching in the middle of watching his movie that just came out, Better Man. And there was a quote. I wrote it down and I sent it to Donna, and because I can't remember it, but it was what was it? Songs are only valuable if they cost you something.
Yeah.
And I think that that's absolutely. I've been writing a lot of material lately. Like I've written 4 records in as many months because the world is shit, and this way I don't have to think about it. So, but I have spent a lot of time learning lyrics and writing lyrics, and finding the balance between it's like, okay, here are things that are fiction that I'm enjoying writing, but here are also places where I'm really tapping into my experiences and my fears and things like that, which actually brings me to where I wanted to go with you, which was so you write your comic Matilda is a elevator summary, elevator pitch for it is
Oh, my elevator pitch for it is the Lucifer, not Satan, but Lucifer has given birth to a hybrid child that he has trained and insulated to be the leader of his armies. And in revealing what his master plan is to destroy all of existence, including himself, she is a Trojan horse. And she realizes she does not want to be the instrument in her own cessation of life. So she sells out to the other side. And in doing so, she's given 3 tasks. 3 tasks is to understand why life is important, why life has been valued over, by deities of all kind, and stop her father from destroying all of existence and pass the 3rd grade. And so she's incarnated into a 3rd grader's body, but she has full sentient knowledge of who she is and what she has to do. And it's not as theological as the premise sounds. But it's pretty much Hellboy meets Hit Girl, and so yeah, so that's pretty much what
a
Matilda
lot
is.
of people doing it. And I guess you've got other actual books now, or is it just multiple
It's
seasons?
multiple graphic novels. So each graphic novel, usually has about like 3 chapters in it. So it'd be the equivalent of 3 individual comic book issues.
Right.
I kind of just start compiling them all into to usually one 72-page book, and so yeah, I've gotten 3 out, and got 2 out, and I've got a little free sampler that is canon with the story, but and I'm working on the 3rd one. Although I have been working on it in the past, 6 months since Ange died, but slowly getting back to it. Uh, but yeah, and working on other stuff that comes along, and of course the day
That's
job.
your main. In addition to teaching, that's your main creative outlet. That's yours, right?
Yeah, it's a college professor, 2-time NISOD teaching in excellence award winner, and yeah, I teach graphic design, illustration, and animation. Like logo design is my forte as far as graphic design goes. I'm a big logo designer and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what I've been doing. That's what pays the bills, so to speak, is the day gig. But even then, it's still, my toes are still dipped
Yeah, of course.
into it because I worked in advertising and marketing for about 15 years, and that's what led to the teaching gig. And so I'm still kind of doing this creative outlet, but now I'm trying to teach other people how to do the creative outlet too.
And there's a lot of like really cool, like I am by all things being equal, I do fine art, painting stuff, but the logo design is one of those things where, because at the end, all art is communication, like logo design to me is like taking all of that communication from a big thing or a book or whatever and distilling it down into something you can get in like a quarter of a second. And I
Yep.
think that's really cool. A weird analogy is like on Aqualung by Jethro Tull. There are these short little 1 minute songs here and there where they just kind of get in, say the thing, get out. And so there's a lot of that kind of like, I don't know, with art dude fascination that I get really excited about, like like, wow, that logo works really fucking well because it just tells you exactly what you need to know. You
Yeah, I always liked it because it forces you to simplify the message.
hmm
Because, every culture, even if they're untouched by the Western world, they have a language and they communicate through language. We don't communicate in hieroglyphs anymore. We don't communicate in cave paintings anymore, and pictographs anymore. So it forces you to simplify the message and still communicate the message that they can read the message whether they want to or not in nanoseconds. And then by the time they've processed what it's saying to them, they're like, oh, but it's really cool. Look how they did this and this, how this looks like this in the logo. And so they wind up appreciating. And it floors my students where I was just like, yeah, so creativity is actually about third in the process. It's quickly communicate, quickly, clearly, and then creatively. So
Right,
if you can simplify that message so that they can understand what the word says, then or they're confused by the word and what it's supposed to be saying because
right,
creativity it's overpowering it, then you're not actually communicating. So
right, yeah.
yeah,
And
it's the art of
okay. And now for me, it's always interesting. Like with because I do record covers for people, sometimes I'm like, okay, your idea is really cool, but there's way too many of them. It needs to be
yeah,
this big, and if it works this big, it'll work as big as you want it.
right
But
back.
something really dense won't until if you shrink it down this much. And so just as the world has changed, I mean, we've gone from records to, and it really, that's the big part that just cheeses me off is just having that much real estate for art.
Yeah,
It's, but yeah, so there's always just learning how those things, like the Toblerone logo with the bear or the
right.
mountain or whatever it is, or like, FedEx with a little arrow, just shit like that. It's just kind of like, oh, that's clever.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying is it's that I showed the Toblerone logo, I showed the FedEx logo to students a lot. It's just like what's that? And they're like, oh, it's FedEx. It's like you see the arrow in there, I'm
Mhm.
like, oh shit, I never saw that before. It's like that's the way it's supposed to be. So you read FedEx instantly and quickly, but if you looked at it, you can see, oh, the letter. And I'll get students who'll be like, did they intend to do that? It's like, I don't know. Who knows? They're just using positive and negative space, making the letters touch one another. It could have been a happy accident, could have been
Mhm.
on purpose. But either way, it's a matter of it's the art of communication, is that they got the message across quickly and clearly that someone can come back later and say, oh, but you see the little arrow in there.
Right,
So I do it with the Toblerone logo as well. As it's like, notice how you see the bear. So, but you don't see the bear until you see the bear. You see the
right,
bear last, and but you cannot miss reading Toblerone. So it's the art of communication. So it probably ties in a lot to the how I like to create and draw and things like that. Is probably why I'm drawn to that challenge. Like we were talking about, we like the challenges because challenge serves two purposes. One, it really said, well, all right, Ted, do you really know your shit like you tell everybody you do, that
right.
you can figure it out? To the other side of, well, I think this is figured out. Let's throw it up on the wall and see what happens.
Yep.
So so yeah, it's those challenges that you look at it and you're just like, yeah, I think I got an idea here that'll work, and we'll just see if it works.
I do that a lot. I would often give myself like put up or shut up things. It's like, okay, you think you're
Yeah.
good, reproduce these Rembrandts, and so
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
do it, and it'll be like, all right, yeah, not the way he did it necessarily, but they work, and I'm not going to try and like sell them as but I feel like for the exercise, I felt okay with that. And there's a flip version that I use too, where I'm always just like, where I'll try to figure something out. And I'm like, look, you know, people who are not nearly as smart as you are who do this. So if they can do this, you can do this. Learning guitar was like that. Like I kind of had this like, well, you already know how to paint. Like it's like you're never going to be as good as you are with this is that. So why bother? And I was just like, shut up. Just shut up. It's like you have the two prerequisites. You're not an idiot and you have hands. So you can play guitar. Um, how do you how do you feel that you are able to how well do you feel you're able to communicate through Mathilda to talk about just the things that you feel that you need to talk about, because it's not, it's a fairly complex backstory and idea that you can work with. So you can do a lot with truth and perception and morals and all of that stuff. And
Yeah, the running theme of it is um of all things, it's faith. It's that, because people tell me they'll read it or they'll hear the premise or whatever, and they were like, "Oh, I didn't think you were a religious guy." I'm a recovered Catholic, so I understand it. But it's this thing of it's faith. We put faith in a lot of things that aren't necessarily, a guy sitting on a cloud, a throne in the clouds. We put faith in that the bank's going to have my money when I go there tomorrow
right,
morning. And I
or
have
the
faith in
government
my car.
isn't going to like become evil.
Yeah, I have faith that my car is going to start tomorrow morning and get me to work. I have faith that, I'm going to get to the end of the day tomorrow. We put faith in a lot of things that are so abstract that, you don't need people unconsciously have faith in things. And so that's my broader picture is it's that, how can we, learn to be, just better human beings? It's like taking the Bible and taking a lot of the bullshit out of it that is clearly the bullshit. And not just the Bible, it's any religious tome.
Yeah, yeah.
Taking the bullshit out of it and leaving the philosophy that's behind it. If
Don't
Jesus,
be a dick.
yeah, exactly. And
Right.
so yeah, I think I'm able to say and get these points across mainly because of the humor
Mhm.
in it and because people remember funny. And I remember, and I know that from working in advertising and marketing. It's like everybody wants clever, everybody wants funny because that's what they will remember.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a way of me being able to talk about these issues that I think more people should talk about in an intelligent way and pull the zealothism out of it. And humor can be a way to show and disarm these things, to show people that you don't realize what it is that you're laughing at. And it's like, and then when you realize it, you're like, oh, and then that's the part that you're supposed to actually think about. Yeah, she actually has a point, or they actually have a point.
Mhm.
So, so yeah, I think I'm doing it pretty well. And if it's going over people's heads, it doesn't matter. I,
Oh, you got the multi-layer entertainment, like Shakespeare. You've got like the actual point of
yeah,
it.
yeah,
You've got the jokes for the fart people.
right, yeah. And then the other thing is, I thank you for your purchase, even if you didn't
Oh
get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't do it to make sure you got it. I did it because this is, this is what wasn't. I was so excited and still excited that I just, that's takes my attention. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I think I do it pretty well. And, I look at earlier stuff like we were just talking about, just like, oh shit, I could have written that a little bit better. That page sequence could a little bit better. But it's, like when I lost all the artwork during Katrina, like all the physical pages and my backup files and all that stuff, I had to redo the books because people were like, why do you only have, such a small amount if you've been doing it since 2000? It's like, well, I lost everything in Katrina. And so to reprint books and things like that, I literally had to redraw
Oh, wow.
everything again and rescan it in and reletter it and recolor it. And it's a good thing of this like perseverance. You still just do the thing. But the other thing was is that I'd been a little farther enough along that I could see it's like, well, man, now's my chance to fix those things.
Right,
And
yeah.
that really just cheesed me off. And one of the main things was is that when I first did it, I couldn't afford for budget, I couldn't afford to do the books as 32 page books. But when I lost everything and had to redo it, I was like, well, actually now I'm making better as a teacher. I can actually put the pages that I had to take out back
Mhm.
in. So I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I'm understanding why George Lucas redid things. I'm
Right.
understanding why bands say, hey, we found these, the demos of them and stuff like that we're going to put on the album here and re-release this version of the album so you can hear what our process was. That song that you really like actually kind of started out like this and
Right.
didn't sound anything like it. So yeah, it's everybody's like, "Oh my God, why'd you redo everything?" It's like, well, number one, so I could have product to put out again, art slash product, and the other part of it was, I got to actually tell the story the way I originally
Right.
wanted to tell the stories.
Guess what? Commercial time. So I'm trying to kind of theme these for all the, for the people that are doing it. Since Ted does comics, I just wanted to let you guys know about a graphic novel that I did called Red in Tooth and Claw, which is an extremely violent kaiju love story about a pair of celestial wolves. And it is quite possibly one of the best things I've ever made in my life. I'm extremely proud of it. It's the thing that, as an artist, you're always looking for to feel that like you've said your piece. And I feel that with Red and Tooth and Claw, I managed to actually do that. It's a pretty solid book, and there's actually two more additional DLC downloadable chapters that you can get also that go along with this through a link with the book. You can find out more about it at www.redandtoothandclaw.art, because now .arts are a thing apparently. And I will tag a promotional video that I did onto the end of this video. So thanks a lot.
And apply what I learned. So yeah, I think I've got a pretty decent grasp on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I
But you
throw it
never
out
do,
there,
you
and
know.
someone else will come up to the table and say, man, I really like how it's progressing along. I'm really seeing the evolution of the character finally. And somebody else is like, when we're going to see the next book. So yeah, just I throw it out there, man.
Yeah.
People love it. That's fantastic.
One of the things I had to learn was to take not do anything that takes away any of that joy from fans. Like when we did, we've done, Dragonfly, our first record, and some for a while there, people would come, oh, say, I really love it. And it's like, oh, cool, yeah, the production shit, blah, 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 blah. And now I've had to learn to like, thank you, that's because ultimately it's like, I don't want to take anything away from that. And the songs are good, there's still things that we play and we're proud of, and they work. They're just, thousands of other things now, like stuff that I learned just this last year to make songs better that I couldn't apply
Yeah.
before. So
Well, it's the thing, about what we do is art, and art is a real big catchphrase kind of thing that there's no wrong answer for. And it's like I'll usually will, butt heads with people about, you gotta again, artists, an artist does a thing and it's because it's driving them. The whole nature of why you and I are talking tonight is it's their passion about it. It's what excites them, and this is what they want to do, and they're not doing it for you specifically. And so, like, people will always bust on Metallica, for changing their sound and stuff like that. I'm just like, well,
with any
God
of it,
forbid that they discovered Waylon Jennings and now they're influenced by him.
right,
Let an artist create, and if it's not your cup of tea, then that's totally
right,
fine. But they can't call them, you can't call them any kind of label because they created. That's what they were excited to do, and they created it. And there's nothing wrong with AC/DC releasing the same sound on every freaking album. That's what they do, and that's what excites them. So it's this thing of, they're not doing it for you, Sparky. They're doing it because they
what they
do it.
do.
And
It's
we
yeah,
hope you like it. And if you don't, that's okay. So this person over here thinks it's the best thing that they've ever heard. And so you let
yeah.
them have that connection. But I don't know. I'm like, I roll up sleeves real quick at the table when someone just like starts going off on, well, this guy sucks. This guy sucks. It's like, they're
No,
already
no, they
my cup
don't.
of
They're
tea.
good at what they do. You don't have to like it, and that's fine. But
Exactly.
infinitely better than you are. So shut the fuck up.
Exactly. Like I was at a table once and this kid was showing me his sketchbook and he was asking for feedback and he asked what tools I use. I was like, oh, I use these pens right here. And I'm handing him a pen. I was like, here, start sketching something so you can feel what the pen looks like and feels like. And he's, playing around with it, asking more questions. And one of his mates is like kind of thumbing through my portfolio on the table. And he mumbles something under his breath about the art. And I stop and I look at him. Excuse me, what'd you say? And he's like, nothing. I was like, no, 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 no. Seriously, you got an opinion. What is it? What is it that you're saying? He's just like, well, man, he said something about how I drew, like my style or something like that. So it's like, take my sketchbook and a pencil. It's like, well, show me how you would do it. Because I would love to learn something new here. He's like, oh, well, I can't draw. I was like, well, then you need to shut the fuck up.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to go down and tell you how to flip burgers. It's
Right.
just, it's, I stay within my wheelhouse and but by God, if someone knows something or says, hey, you should at least take a look at this, I can even learning that I don't like something is
Right.
still
When I
that
was in school at Corcoran, one year I had this, I probably think it was probably my junior year or something. I had this moment where I was like, if I'm going to do this, I was already a pretty opinionated person, shocking. But if I'm going to do this, I need to be able to articulate why. So anytime I had a strong reaction to anything like a piece of artwork, whatever it was, positive or negative, I would try and remember and stop myself and go, okay, now tell me why you don't like it, or what is it that you do like about it? What quantify what those things are so that you can, so that it can then be discussed. And or so that you can, add it to whatever it is you're doing. Um, so, yeah, so really, like for me, there's stuff that I can be like, well, I get it. It's not my thing, but I get it. But
yeah,
the only times I really like get aggro on an artist is if I think that they're putting up a front about why they're doing it. Like
right,
there was somebody on a website. They had a video of somebody, and they were doing this massive cityscape with squeegees, and it was all. And I got on. It's like this is literally the fine arts, the painting equivalent of the guys on the beach with the spray paint making galaxies. So it's just
right, right,
the steps that results in this product. It was like unless it's like I don't believe that this guy can do something other than this, and
right,
I'm sure they sell really well. I'm sure they're selling them for way more than I make to law firms and people like that who want something because they in the end result it's like it looks really nice if you don't know what you know. So it's
right.
kind of like yeah, man. I mean, and watching it's like it's all wow. They're using tools that I know how to use. So I think that there's kind of a then maybe I could do this too. And it's like, well, you probably could. It's like once you understand the steps,
Yeah.
it's
That's why I
like,
keep coming back to art/product. It's the
yeah, yeah. It's like now you've gone from art to craft. It's basket weaving.
yeah.
It's like he's going through a series of steps to achieve one specific product.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so it's, what is art versus what is product.
Right.
And that's how I describe it to the illustration students that I get in on campus is it's that, again, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being machine and generating out the one thing. You do that one thing, you do it really, really well, you do it very, very proficiently. But is it art? It's more product. It's an assembly line at this point.
Right.
But if you're challenging yourself and changing your style and letting new influences because someone has put something in front of you that you never even heard of, and you're just like, oh my God, I've never even seen that before, and it influences you, you're doing art at this point.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's art versus
Are you
product.
trying to express something and
Are you trying-
communicate that thing, even if it's not necessarily specific? Because I do a lot of stuff where I'm like, okay, here's the road, and you can go anywhere on this road. I'm just kind of defining that for you. I don't want to tell you this is your destination. Just off in that direction, and you'll get more or less where I want.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, that's why it's one of the first things I write on the board is art/product. And it's like, this is the difference between these things. And I'll show them, here's this particular comic book artist that you're a fan of, but they don't do much more beyond that, and that's totally fine. But
Mhm.
here's an artist that you might be familiar with, but they've been able to transfer their stuff into movies and product and designs for that come to life, physical life, because someone does. Mike Klug is a good example of he started out as a comic book artist, but he wound up becoming a creature designer and doing storyboards and creature designs for Carpenter's The Thing. These things now were tangible, that his sketches were now somebody else was taking and creating into these textured, tangible things that they could touch.
Right.
It's like, man, that's big. That's not product at that point.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
someone that is becoming an artist and is communicating and inspiring somebody else to take that road and go down that road and say, but this is the destination I came to, that the artist can look back and is like, yeah, that works too.
Right.
I
Yeah.
had no idea where it went, but it led you to there, and that looks really kind of cool. So yeah, let's use that too.
That's
So
another
I
one of
always
the
like,
skills that's really interesting is it took me a long time to learn collaboration with people. And eventually, like just doing stuff with Donna and a few other people now, just being in other people's bands. I love being in other people's bands because I'm like, don't need this, like
right, yeah,
tell me what you need me to do. Or if I'm doing a collaboration, I'm like, okay, this is my role here, and I will do this, and I will not tell you what you need to do. If you want a suggestion, I will make a suggestion, but otherwise, this is what I am doing. And that took me a real long time to get. And there's a neat experience when you're doing that where you have to kind of go, oh, this is what this has now become. This thing that maybe I started with has now become this other thing, and figuring out how to internally live with that in a weird way because it's like it's not necessarily what I thought, but it still works. And so that's
right, yeah.
like, but it is a weird thing to kind of not give up, but maybe come to terms. I don't know what the word would be. Come to terms with our experience.
Yeah, I think it's come to terms with the experience, because that's what I've been using when I've been talking about Al being on tour now with touring for with Sympathy and things like that. Is it's that it just took him some time, that he experienced some I don't know, trauma of some sort during the experience of recording these albums, that, as a creative, he learned the hard way, record labels, this is what they do, and
Right,
they're
right,
paying you to do this. But it took him some time to come to some terms with it. And I like to believe that someone was able to get into his ear and say, but you still created this,
right.
man. And if it didn't come out the way you wanted it, you are in a position that you can do it,
Yeah, absolutely.
do it the way you want it, or at least come to terms with it and say, actually, it's not as bad as I was associating the content with the experience. And he was able to pull those two things apart and look at it and say, actually, the content isn't as bad as I thought. It was the experience that
Right.
was bad. I think it is a come to terms kind of thing, as far as you wind up separating the experience from the content. The piece is the piece, and they can't take that away. And if you
Mhm.
separate, well, that guy was a real asshole during the whole process. If you can separate that and look at it, it's like, actually, it still has function and form to it. It still
Mhm.
works. So yeah, I think it's really important. And artists and comics do it, bands do it, where, it goes years that they are associating a bad experience with a person or at a location or whatever, that if you take it away and just look at what was created, the end result, you look at it as like, actually, yeah, that did come out. Faith No More is another example that I put out there to students, is that, it's like, it's all these elements that weren't supposed to fit together,
Yeah.
but it did, and look what it's created. And they can replace people that they didn't necessarily get along with, or people that weren't really in this group bigger than I ever wanted it to be. I thought this was just going to be a one-off thing, but the end result is it's still timeless, and you can look at it and say, actually, that's not bad for making it up as we went along,
Right.
pulling those poor experiences away from the actual piece that is
Mhm.
created.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been so interesting just to like having done this for as long as both of us have been doing it and being able to look back on 30 years plus of experience and work and results. It's wonderful to kind of be able to tap into that, and also to see the common threads that go through it, and the way you've grown, and all those places where you thought you really understood what was going on, and 10 years down the road, like, oh man, I had no idea.
What was I thinking? Why didn't someone stop me?
Hmm.
Yeah,
My
yeah,
my favorite, the other thing for me, I think that as an art, I think artists should be experiment, constantly pushing themselves and coming up with assignments and things like that. And I do that a lot. But I will often point to Picasso as kind of like, yeah, he was a complete tool, whatever. But
right.
from an art point of view, he did this one thing and he did it really well, and he got bored with it and then went and just did something completely different, and then something completely different, something completely different. And it was like, to me, that is what art is when you can
Yep.
go these different ways. Like, I've had people go, well, you started out as an artist and you're doing music. How is that? And it was like, it's the same thing. It's just different tools. You
Right.
know? And or like one of my favorite things about is Picasso's bull. For those of you who do not know, Picasso wanted to see, he would start out with this drawing of a bull and wanted to see how minimal he could take it down and still maintain boldness. And he eventually got it down to like 2 or 3 lines of where you could just go, and you could read it
That's
as a bull.
back.
Goes back to iconography and advertising.
Hmm.
Um, so and that's just a great example of, or of course, cubism, of somebody kind of trying to solve a problem. Like, how can I look at a figure on a flat surface, all the parts at the same time? Bam, cubism.
Hmm.
And so, like, I don't know, I just in my personal work, more with music than with art. Art tends to be more subject oriented, but with music, I do a lot of kind of like, well, let's just see how this is going to, see if I can here's the rule, how do I make that happen, kind of thing.
Right.
Um, I had a, it's so funny that this is one of those, it's a moment from my schooling that I feel a lot of shame for, and I'm still not entirely sure why, because I think it just comes down to, it reminded me how much I didn't know. It was my first year at school, and it was the first semester of my first year. And I was, so this was 90, I think. And Sandman was a big thing. And more specifically for me, Dave McKean's artwork
Right.
and the mixed media nature of all of that. And so I was just trying lots of different things with that. And I think at the time I had I don't know, like an oven mesh board with like a bunch of slate wired to it. And I was trying to do the artwork on that. And, one of the teachers some came up and commented, and I made something about like some statement about, well, this is the style I'm working in now. And she just stops me and she's like, oh, no, no, no. You don't have a style. You won't have a style until you're 40, until you're mature as an artist. To say that you have a style is laughable. And
Wow.
she was absolutely right, but that's one
Yeah.
of the shittiest things anybody, and the way that she did it, that anybody's ever done to me. It's like and it's true, when you can pick what you're doing, yes, then you could say this is the style I'm doing, because you're making that choice. Otherwise, it's just a trick that you're doing. But
Yeah, because it's at that point, it's separating style from medium. And as a teacher, I could point it out in terms of, it's like, no, you're confusing style with medium. That's the medium that you're working in right now.
yeah,
Let's
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're not at a style yet, but you're experimenting with mediums, which is fine
Yeah,
because that
that makes way. That's actually, I've never thought about that, but that, yeah, that's exactly how it would be.
yeah. And it's and it's like we were saying, is that I don't know, man. I just take a lot of that kind of, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I do it well, whatever. But, just because you don't doesn't mean I'm going to try and make you embarrass you or feel like shit for it. So,
Right,
it's, like you and I have talked about it in terms of, a lot of people confuse being a straight shooter and using it as an excuse to be just mean to people
right.
and have control over some sort of aspect of their life that ordinarily they don't have control over. So no, it's if I'm in a class environment, I got to have that experience with them to be able to walk away with, he may have, rubbed me the wrong way, but he wasn't lying to me.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
he's passionate and he's knowledgeable. He wasn't lying to me,
Hmm.
or he wasn't purposely trying to make me feel like shit. I
Right.
could be the one that inspires, this next big thing, or I could be the one that inspires them to go down a path that becomes their path for 20, 30 years too. So yeah, it's this. No, yeah, I'd have slapped her. It's like I remember I was in a figure drawing class and the model was on there. And I drew the model and stuff like that. And I'm looking around like, what else do I do? Do I draw her again? Can I move to another location to draw her? And the teacher was like, no, no, just wait until, the time's up and then everyone else will
Hmm.
be done. I'm like, all right. And so I'm fucking, so I started adding to it. And so, like, I'm drawing, I put this huge, huge mohawk on her. I start drawing tattoos on her body and stuff like that. And he comes back around and he's like, wait, why did you do all that? I was like, because that's what I saw. He's like, but none of that is physically there. I was just like, well,
If
it's
the
in
anatomy
here.
right, doesn't matter then.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, so I'm bored. So, if you wouldn't let me move to another seat to draw from a different point of view, I said that I'm just going to keep adding to it because,
Right.
I'm
Now, I did the
bored. And
assignment. Now yeah.
right. And so she came around later. She's like, got her towel wrapped around. She's like, can I have that? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because it's an in-class assignment and, I don't need it. And so, but she was just like, God, I look like this warrior, battle warrior or something like that. And I was just like, I don't know. That's just what I saw. I was like, what if she had a mohawk?
Right.
What if the
Right.
mohawk was huge mohawk? So, yeah, it's just, I don't know, man. It just got to be this kind of, encouraging and give them the connection that they're trying to do because I can relate to yeah the artist the teacher's name was Doyle and I only know that from Doyle of the Misfits and so he yeah it's like as a teacher he just like totally lost it in terms of like admonishing instead
Yeah.
of saying, hey, I'm the adult here and I'm just trying to tell you, what you're doing is fine, but this is how it works and this is how it doesn't work in a bigger picture that your prefrontal cortex can't process just yet.
When by my senior year, I had a really nice situation because like it's all open studios, and I found a closet, and nobody had taken. So I was just like moved into this closet, so I had my own little isolated space, and it was great. And we
It's
had
not much different than what you have now, actually.
oh, yeah, we had this our assignment for that year is your senior's thesis show, and it's showing up in the Corcoran Gallery. And so I was just doing what I do, and it's I'm not going to say it's not dramatically different, but it was figurative stuff. I like telling or at least implying stories. I like giving something to think about and maybe overlay your experiences with. And you know, and this was something I don't think I didn't learn until later, but the point of with a lot of art schools is they want to create artists that go out and then get famous because it looks really
Right.
good for them.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there was a woman there who did these paintings that like she would pin canvas up on the wall and then mix mud with medium and straw and just do all of this. And okay, cool. To me, it looked like a barn floor. They thought it was amazing. And he actually like said some pretty negative shit about the fact that I was doing this figurative stuff. And and that was the moment that I got it. And I was like, oh, oh, you're just as opinionated as the students are. Okay, that means I don't really have to care anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because the work's solid, technically it is good. Therefore, I'm not worried about it. Like you don't have to like it. That's cool.
Right.
And once I realized that, I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Now,
Yeah.
the shitty part, the flip side of that was after I moved to Baltimore, I went to Maryland Institute and I was like, hey, look, I've got this degree. I'm interested in getting a master's. And I showed the woman my portfolio, and she goes, well, this is all very scattered and it's all different things, and we want to see something that's you. And I'm like, I have ADD. I like lots of things. I do lots of stuff. And the thing that really, and again, this is one of those things I kind of realized after the fact, and I wish I could have said it at the time, was, wait a minute. So you are telling me a person who wants to come and give you money, who technically has the chops to do lots of different things, that you don't want my money because I'm doing too many different things and it's not focused enough.
Yeah, because
I'm a student coming to you
their
to
name.
learn. Like, and that just blows me away that they were acting like that, you know?
Yeah, that comes back to, like we were saying here, is that, they hope that this person, develops a name for themselves because it makes them look good as the institution that, birthed them in some sort of capacity. So, yeah, I see it at the institution that I work for is that, they'll have the gun aimed squarely at their foot and then they turn it around and point it at their face instead. You
Right.
know, so yeah, they missed out on that.
Right. And hypothetically, let's say that I did get famous for doing figurative artwork. Are they going to go, and I'm like, yes, I went to Corcoran. They're going to go, oh, no, no, he didn't. No, he
No,
didn't.
exactly right. They'll
Like, no,
never,
you'd be like, hey, that's great.
yeah, they'll never deny it if you're
Right.
making them look good through your successes. So yeah, it's a short-sightedness that, again, coming back to, doing the thing is it's that, if you're technically proficient in it, then just do it. Don't worry about this level of perfection. Don't worry about if people are going to like it because not everyone's going to like it. Just do it and be satisfied with what you've done, but be excited about the next thing you're going to create because that's going to be 10 million times better. Because that's, for me, it was one of those things when I started doing the comic, it clicked whenever you read, about a certain band or something like that, and they'd release a new album and they'd be like, man, we think this is some of our best work, the best work I've ever done, some of the best songs I've written. And I never understood that. I was just like, man, that just sounds so fake. And then I started doing it myself. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what it literally is better than I did just last
Yeah.
time.
Even if it
So,
was only like a month or two ago, like that's one of the weirdest experiences I've had. It's like I wrote this one record like 3 months ago, and this thing I just did last night is better than that. And I hate because your art instinct is to kind of go, "Hey guys, I just wrote the best thing I wrote." Didn't you just say yes? I did, but this time I mean it. You know.
this time. Yeah,
So
and it's like you're sitting there, fussing at yourself. It's like, well, where was this when I did this 3 months ago?
right,
Jesus Christ. So I
and
wanted
sometimes
that.
even for
So,
that, it's kind of like, well, that was, yeah, and you do have to kind of restrain yourself and go like, well, that was the best I could do,
correct.
because I've seen so many people who because particularly with music now, because you can just go in and tweak it and tweak it and tweak it and tweak it because you can have 100 tracks,
Right.
who will overwork something to the point where they're trying to compensate for all that fear or of it not being good. Somebody gave me a record to listen to once, and I was like, I'm only telling, this is already out. Normally, I wouldn't critique it, but you're a friend of mine, and we've known each other for a very long time. I just want to say that every chance you had to do something interesting on this record, you went with the safe route.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and I think that's a shame because you had it for so long that you kept second guessing all of those things as opposed to, you know, allowing yourself to just go, "Fuck it, let's, we'll try that, and if it flies, cool."
Right. Yeah. Donna and I've talked about it in terms of writing and things like that, is that I'm a firm believer of taking the trope and creating something that's like, okay, if we follow the normal progression, the safe
Mhm.
way, if you will, and then it's like I get to that end, it's like Picasso. It's like if this is, I know how to draw an elephant. It's like now, how can I break that? How can
Right,
I push that and give myself those challenges? And like with writing, it's that you write it and it's like, okay, this is, safe and this is easy. Now, how can I break that trope? How can I take that part and snap it off and say, what if we didn't do that?
right.
What if we did this instead? What if this happened before that instead? And so that's what I always push artists and in all of it is that do the safe thing and then look at the safe thing and say, well, okay, how can I change this safe thing, much like Picasso? And that how can I simplify this? How can I shrink down and really just dig deep and find and pull off all the trappings that are unnecessary, all the tropes that everyone can predict, because that is just the death of creativity is that it can be predicted, is that, and then get it down to this.
Hmm.
And what is this? This is what I'm actually trying to say. This is what I'm actually trying to do. And the rest of it is just the trappings of it. It's And I tell students all the time, man, I said, sometimes art's like candy bars. They're all basically the same thing. It's just this one has peanuts and this one has nougat, but
Hmm.
it's all the sugar.
Right.
So it's like, how do you drill down deeper to make this thing different with all the other trappings? What is the thing that's the part
What
that
is
I'm
the innateness of whatever the thing is, the
right,
ness of it? I had back when we had the gallery, and it was cool because I was the artist in residence, had the gallery, I had all this material, and so I did this painting that was like 5 by 8 feet, and it had all like we were deconstructing part of the gallery, and so I had all this stuff like attached to it, and again playing kind of with this idea of Dave McKean's sort of mixed media thing. And I was walking through it. We were just kind of my stuff happened to be up, but we were casually just critiquing with another artist in Maryland, casually critiquing the other work. We get to my piece, and he goes, "This is what I would tell my students is a magnificent failure." And he knew it was mine, so it wasn't like even a thing like that. And I was like, "Oh, really? Why?" And he was like, "Because you worked so hard to make it magnificent that you didn't make it good." And
right,
Lord, because he was absolutely right. I knew something was wrong with it, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And I was just really digging on the fact that I could make it as that big that it almost didn't matter what the content was. I could just go ahead and I could just do it.
right.
And I think about that a lot because I'm a big fan of excessive. I tend to like anything that's really just over. One of my favorite is Barnum, and no one ever paid for Under the Top. And so I think about that a lot. I always picture it as this bubble. Like, how far can I push this bubble before I break it?
Right. Yeah.
And turns out you can push it pretty damn far. But the core, the isness of it has to really you have to know what that is because otherwise, if there's nothing inside and you're just pushing that for the sake of it, then it's it's shitty to the audience because it's like, hey, you hyped, you're hyping all of this up, whatever this thing is, and but it doesn't mean anything. There's no, and it's not even that it doesn't mean anything in that, well, we can interpret it, whatever. I mean, like literally, there's nothing there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, there's the Edge was talking about certain chords having more cost than others, so you can only use them occasionally. And it's kind of the same sort of thing. Like there are certain tricks that you can only use once in a while because they're that good and they're also so strong that if there's nothing behind them, it becomes just the trick. It's just the
Yeah.
guitar effects.
Yeah. Yeah. And, so I say it's like, especially nowadays with digital art, and I'm telling my students as far as graphic design is concerned and stuff like that, yeah, I get it. Everybody buzzes around Photoshop and stuff like that they teach it in the high schools, and it's all fantastic. You come in technically proficient. You can work around in the software and stuff like that, but using it in a way that people are not distracted by how photoshopped this is. Like that's where I come in is that
Mm-hmm.
less is more.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, I show them, I'll always show them an example. Like I'll type my name and it's like, oh, look, here's all these layer styles that I can do to it. I can put a bevel around my name and I can put a texture on my name and I can put a drop shadow under my name and I can put a glow around my name. And look how busy this thing is it's got so many different bells and whistles that you're trying to attach a value, but what you're trying to do is replace just you're trying to replace a technique with the creative thinking process of it.
Right.
What is this trying to say? That if you're not clear with the message, then you can't sit there and kick rocks and dirt saying nobody understands my work. Well, I'm sorry, you didn't give them enough to solve the puzzle, Vanna.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Well, like
that
a
kind of
good
drill
song.
down to this. This is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm using all these things, but it's still driving it to this. This is what I'm trying to say, and I'm using all these things to say this.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 Exactly. It's like, can you strip a song down to just a guitar and play it and have it doesn't have it still have impact?
Right. That's
I mean,
why
like,
when you share me with your stuff that you do in your private groups and stuff like that, it's I'm not a musician. I mean, I know enough, but I'm not a musician that I can even play, but I understand what you're trying to do.
right.
And that's why I think I'm in those groups is I get what he's trying to say. And this is the sounds that he's using to get to that, is he still getting to that?
Mhm. And also a lot of that stuff for me, just like I the stuff that I'm currently releasing under my name is all starting out with like just thousands and thousands and thousands of samples of stuff, and I don't know where they came. I make them, I forget where they come from. They don't get any labels on them, nothing. I just pull them in randomly and start and build the base of the song off of that because I don't. I personally don't think like a musician. I've got friends that can sit down with a guitar and write a song, or like Donna when she wrote Wolf, she came out of the shower, sat down at the piano, and it shot fully formed out of her forehead. Lyrics, music, all of it. I don't work that way. I have to see things over and over again, and I just don't think so. Having stuff that's already sort of got melodies to it, or sounds, or shapes to it, gives me a lot to build off of. And so for me, it's that way. I'm not sitting there. It's for the same reason I when my sketchbooks, I don't just start with blank paper. I start with stuff on them because then I'm not staring at a blank screen or a blank page going, what's my brilliant idea? And so it adds a whole like gives your brain is very good at knowing what doesn't work and very bad at knowing what will work. And so this
Right.
is a way of like throwing a bunch of mud down and then pulling it out to find the shape in it.
Yeah, and it's that sense of, there are people that they can write a song or they can draw. Like I usually point to Frank Cho as a comic artist that, he does what he does. He does it really, really well. He can draw a female form. He can draw a human form. He can draw superheroes. He can draw dinosaurs or whatever. And he starts it the same way each and every time. And that's his formula. And that's what works. But it's like taking that and then saying to yourself again, well, that's the safe way I can do it. What can I do now to kind of push it? But that's the point I'm trying to make. And so, yeah, then next thing you know, he's taking a ballpoint pen, a big blue line pen, and he's rendering it now and cross hatching layers, but he's using a big pen to do it. It's like, okay, he's gotten the idea. This is what I'm trying to show, a woman riding a dinosaur, but this is how I'm telling you it's a woman riding a dinosaur.
Mhm.
So yeah, I can totally get it. Is that you have all these bits and pieces and parts that kind of come together, and that you then start kind of formulating into this is kind of the underlying of what I'm trying to say,
It's finding
and building.
it's getting that dialogue going for me. That's
Yeah,
the part that like what does it want to be? Like I try really hard to
right. Yeah,
I'm not going in and going, okay, well, here's the melody that I've got in my head, or even the lyrics. Like, I don't do any of that stuff until I have a form, and then I'll go back and listen to it. And kind of, what does this feel like to me? Like today, I ended up writing something that was like I had no plans to do this, but it's about the Axeman actually from down in your neck of the woods. So it's writing this story, this song story about from his point of view. No idea where that came from, but all of a sudden it was just like, hey, this all kind of fits together, like it can be about this.
right. Yeah,
And that's the part
yeah.
that really gets me off is seeing having it all come together like it just snaps into place.
Yeah, and we joke as artists that it's letting the muse kind of just let the muse do what the muse wants to do, and so yeah, it's sometimes I just finished a character design that I struggled with because he was giving me too many pieces, and they were all like if there were ingredients in a kitchen, I'm just like this would taste like a party in my
Enough
mouth and everything.
spice and not enough content
Yeah,
below.
and so it's like he's coming at me with all these different influences. It's just like, well, taking this paragraph of nonsense and it's like this line right here. That's the summation of what he wants. And I can take that,
Yeah.
and now it's starting to come together that I can take off all these trappings and say, this is what we really want here.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's that letting it tell you what it's really trying to tell you it wants to be. And it sounds really, kind of artsy fartsy or whatever, but
It's
unless
the
you're out there,
only
it's
way
this
I
is
know to explain it. Like
this is how it works sometimes. It's just it comes to you that it just starts to click, and it's that's how I associate it is that it's telling me what it wants to be.
yeah,
And
and that's
okay,
very
yeah,
much
now
it.
it makes sense. And now the piece and myself as its vessel we're now speaking the same language at this point that now starts to come together, and I get more excited about it and things like that. But it starts with this like the way life started, it was this pool of genetics that just shit started randomly coming together. That was like, oh wow, we have propulsion now. This works. We're going to keep this. Oh wow, I have legs now. Okay, I can get used to this. So yeah, it's this chaos mess that we somehow are able to finally just relax and glaze over. That it starts to talk to us that we're like, okay, that's actually the point that we're
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to. Now I can make that point and help the piece be what it needs to be.
yeah. The one thing that I very much try and impress on people is so the thing, sure, it comes in from the creative subconscious, comes in from the ether, whatever. It already knows what it wants to be. You can present ideas to it. You can make suggestions and be like, hey, well, how about if we try this? And it might go, yeah, okay, let's give it a shot and see what happens.
Yeah.
The more you inflict your will on it, though, the worse it gets. Because at that point, it stopped being whatever it needs to be, and now it's becoming about you, and that means it's becoming about vanity. And that's when things, at least generally to me in my work, fall apart. Because yeah,
It's anyone that's been into art school will be familiar with the phrase is, the art teacher tells you you're overworking the piece.
mhm.
And that's how I've always defined it as well, is that I'm overworking the piece because I'm trying to subvert my will over it too much versus what it needs to actually be, its form and its function.
Mhm.
So yeah,
And it comes
definitely.
down to fear, honestly. It comes down to
Yeah.
I am scared that somebody's going to call me on if I don't feel like I've done enough work on this. Somebody's going to come up and go, "You didn't do enough work on it."
Yeah.
Like I did this one piece years ago. It was like 2 by 5 feet. It was big painting, and I did knock the entire thing out in half an hour. And I was sitting there, and I was staring at it, and I got more and more angry because I was like, "Fuck it!" And I picked it up and I put it facing against the wall. And I was like, "Everything about this is telling me it's done, except the fact that I want to keep working on it."
Right.
So it's like I had to take it away and put it over there, and just so much of what I have been working on, I think with a lot of the music that I've been doing is trying to kind of go, no, this is exactly. I don't need to add more to this in order to make it better. Like this is all like I want to produce it well, but it doesn't need like 10 layers of whatever. It can just it functions just fine without that, and that's not with my ADD, that is not something that comes naturally to me. It's always kind of like, well, this is cool, and this is cool, and this is cool, and this is cool.
Yeah. No, I actually, and it leads me to a thought as I was at a show once and someone had come up and was talking about, well, it says here you did this work on this movie. What did you do? I was like, oh, well, I did this, this, and this, and I actually go look at it and you go see it and so they went and looked it up and they're just like, wow, so it's this, and they're showing me on the phone. I was like, yeah, actually, yeah, that's what I did. It's like, wow, this doesn't look like anything that you've done before. I was like, yeah, that's because
That's
they wanted it
the
that
goal
way.
of this, yeah.
Did it the way they wanted it, and so they're like, he asked me, he's just like, don't you think that's selling out? It's like, no, absolutely not.
It's putting food on my table.
Exactly. I was like that. I was like that. So that job you're looking at right there wiped out 3 credit cards worth of debt.
Mhm.
Said so. Netflix pays handsomely. I said
Right.
so. Yeah. They said in the end they nodded up and down and said this is what we're looking for. And I still talk to the guys to this day. Are just like, man, I could have done so much more with that. They're like, no, 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 no. That's what we wanted, and so
Right.
that's what you delivered. So there is something to be said for I can knock it out or slap it out or whatever or throw something on the table that somebody can say, dude, that is totally not what you're normally doing. It's like, well, yeah, but they didn't pay me for that.
And that gets into
That's
styles and choices. It's like, yeah, I've had weird commissions. Somebody wanted me to write like a metal intro to a radio show, and so I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, there it is. Um, or like, yeah, just all kinds of just weird the jobs that pop up because you do what you do, and you know,
yeah.
I
And there's
mean,
I just tell students a lot that it's like it's not. Don't be afraid of, money. Don't be afraid of that you just knocked something out and slapped it together. You don't necessarily have to put it in your portfolio, but enjoy the experience for what it is that someone said, hey, we like what you do. That could you do this for us? And it may not be up to your artistic standards. You just knocked it out. or whatever, but you still did it, and it's still something to be proud of. And there's nothing wrong with, making money, kids.
And there are ways of finding ways to enjoy that stuff. Like people will pay me to do remixes or production work, and it's like for me, it's always cool because I'm able to kind of go and go find the thing inside the thing and see what I can bring that out. Or like I'll do commission work, or do like pet portraits or whatever. It's like I have no attachment to
Right,
it.
yeah.
I am, however, I do have an attachment that you have an attachment to it, and that's really cool. So I always want to present that well. And also, I just literally enjoy the act of painting. So,
Right. Yeah.
so for me, it is just a sitting here and using the skill that I know how to use is always better than working at McDonald's or whatever else I would have to do since I don't have any real world skills. So,
Right.
like, it's oh no, I have to paint instead of go to a day job. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
painting necessarily what I want to be painting, but that's okay. Like it's still that. And that makes it something I will put effort and time into. And also it does force you to learn new things or try new things or whatever, or problem solve. I did have to have the experience of having to, I did a music video for somebody and they wanted me to do a certain thing. And I was like, I had to write them and say, your artist is incredibly well respected for production. And if I do this video the way you want me to do, it's going to look like shit. And if we do it the way I'm suggesting it, it will look good. It's not what you want, but it will still look good and it will still
Right.
look professional. And that was a little terrifying because it was just one of those things where it's like, I really hope that we all want the same thing here. And it's not
Yeah.
because I think what I'm doing is better. I'm like, but I can objectively tell you that what you want is worse.
Right. Yeah. That's why, I've had many conversations with art directors is like, that they'll lay it out and I'll be like, look, I'm not clearly based off of what you guys are telling me you want. I'm not the audience for that.
Right,
That's totally fine. I can do it exactly the way you guys want it done, and you guys will walk away happy. I will cash my check. It's like, but if you want me to like be excited about this, then you've got to let me at least, offer you a take. This is if you let me do what I do best, this is what I think it should look like.
right,
And it will appeal to a totally different type of audience that you're looking for, which actually is a good thing because people that already like what you do,
right,
they're going to like what you do regardless what it is.
right,
You're trying to push that bubble a little farther out to maybe grab a couple of outlier people that never gave you a second thought. That's like, oh wow, actually this is now kind of more my thing that they're doing. So yeah, totally. It's just like, and then they'll say, yeah, we appreciate it, but we still want to do it the way we want. That's fine
right.
too.
That's fine. Yeah, it's your
I have an
money.
attachment that you have an attachment to it.
Right.
So I'm excited to deliver what has been an abstract thought in your head
Mhm.
into a tangible reality. But every now and then I'll say, if you just let me do what I do, it could look like this and it'll look awesome. And, movies will do that to me all the time where, they like what I come out with and I was like, isn't that why you came to me? They're like, yeah, but we also came to you because we knew you could do it the way we wanted it. It's like,
Right.
okay, at least you're clear about it. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'll do
yeah,
it the way you
absolutely.
guys want it. So
One of the things
yeah,
that
get
I've been
it.
thinking about, we keep talking about getting excited about working on something, and one of my very favorite things about all of this is that I remember a while back I was driving back from the art supply store and I was thinking about stuff that I was going to do, and uh, I was like, I get to go work on this now.
Right.
Like, yes, this is my job still, but now I get to actually go and do this particular aspect of it, as opposed to, more of my life is like that than less with creating stuff, and we should all be, blessed enough to be able to have built that for like that's the entire point of the series is really just
Yeah.
kind of being able to talk about those things that you um really do love. What as a medium, and you because you are a skilled artist, you can choose to do other stuff. Um, as a medium, though, you have run with comics because it is the language that you speak. Um, do you feel that it lends itself to saying certain things? It certainly, I love the fact how when you look back at the history of comics, how much they do push the status quo and that sort of like push, you know, integration and equality and seeing everybody just for who they are. Um, do you see that as a medium, are things that you are able to look back and go like, because when I'm working on music, I'm always like, I write industrial. I can take any sound and just turn it into music, and that's fucking cool. So like, are there places where like you're working on a comic that you're able to kind of go, well, I work in comics, which means I can do, that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
For me, it's because it's topical right now, is seeing I get students like I see it in groups and stuff like that where people are referring to as like, when did comics become so woke?
Right.
And that's what I relate to your question, is it's that because of the medium that's just the end result. That's just what I'm using to express a message of some kind. And so, yeah, it's for me, it's that just because I can take any message that I want and I can just draw, a cartoon or a comic
You can
about that
literally
message.
represent it and even have the text saying it. So it is a very,
Correct.
very clear way of depicting that message, which is really very cool.
And uh, and so yeah, for me, it's any message, any idea, any thought, random thought in my head that I want to communicate. I can communicate it through, this simplistic drawing. And as long as I am clear about the message, that it's got to look at least resemble what it is that I'm trying to communicate to the audience. That's where it's like you were saying, you can take any kind of sound and random sounds, and you can make beats with it and rhythms with it specifically, an almost tribal sort of way, which is, the almost the heart and soul of industrial, is it's that any sound drumming on the log can become a rhythm
Mhm.
of some kind, a danceable beat. And so comics for me is the same way, is it's that any verbal kind of idea or message I can illustrate and even render words next to the illustration that help clarify what that illustration is doing. So yeah, I relate it. I oversimplify it by saying, when did comics become so woke? Well, they've always been woke. They've
Right.
always been social commentary is what they've been.
Mhm.
Even cave drawings on the wall, we're talking about the hunt of the day. It's social commentary
Right.
of some. So so yeah, that's what I think is really kind of cool, is that the message can be anything. It's just this is the medium that I can use to
Right. Yeah.
tell that message.
That's very cool. I have so much respect for any time anybody. I was thinking about this the other day about like because the word went through my head that or the idea went through my head. I was like, man, Jane Goodall's getting old. I really wish I could hug her. And there are a couple of other people that are out there that are like that like Margaret Atwood.
Right.
And I was thinking about like the common thread of that because I look at these people and I realized what it was. It was like they have completely dedicated their lives to to whatever the thing is. I always get her name up. Maria Ambrovovich, the performance artist, the one who like stood naked and then left all these tools out, and they were like, you can hit her or you can do whatever you want, you know. And I was like, the level of commitment that went with that, this to make the point that this is what people will do when given a chance. Like those are the people that I'm just in awe of and hold up this these saints of commitment and creativity. And it's the same sort of thing with like the people that like what you do and how you have just so like exactly what you want to do and you've done it and you have figured out a way to maintain it uh and are realistic about it.
Yeah.
That's Like,
And ultimately, that's the connection that you and I had when we first met, that it's that we do what we do, but we're realistic about it.
yeah,
It's not, it's not just, all the bullshit talk. It's that, we're actually doing it, but we're also very realistic about what it is that we do. And I remember Ange told me that I should do this because she said something similar to what you just said. I remember her once saying, just because, squirrel, kind of mentality. She just like blurted out. She was like, I wish I could hug Dick Van Dyke.
right, yeah.
And I was just like, and that started a conversation of who we wanted hugs from. That she was just like, you should do a series of drawings. If that's all it is just like you from the back in your cowboy hat and you're hugging somebody and you can see their face. And it's like, and that's just the
Yeah.
series. I want a hug from Dick Van Dyke and draw yourself hugging Dick Van Dyke. I was just like, yeah, actually, it'd be a pretty fucking great series to do.
I've got a few people that are like, I like one day it occurred to me, I was like, I'm gonna go play mini golf with Seal. Like, I thought that would just be really nice and chill and fun. Like
Yeah,
there'd be no pressure, nothing. Just play some mini golf, hang out, talk about making things or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like those people that like yeah, they seem like they've and obviously everybody has nuances, but I think like the core of that creative goal of what they create and the core of what they have tried to accomplish in the world. We're all horrible monstrous people to somebody at some point. But I'd like to think that regardless of that, my core has always been this, this creation, and I think any form of that is good. Any form
Yeah.
of art putting that out is good. So, how many cats are there? There's two.
I'm down to three now. So this is the oldest. And the two black cats are
Ah,
hidden.
there's more than one black cat.
There's one on the couch. But yeah, we're down to three now. And I'm maintaining the exit strategy, and that is, I'm looking at 60, so I can't get a kitten now
Right.
because
Yeah.
the kitten all of a sudden gets shocked that it's not in its normal house anymore. If I do any more cats, I'm gonna adopt older cats that,
You can always foster kittens.
yeah, and a friend of mine, she fosters kittens. I was just like, yeah, I think if I do any more cats or dogs or whatever, I'm just going to go with the older ones. That just it's like, yeah, they're like me. You're closer to the drain today than you were yesterday. So I just can't imagine, a kitten or a puppy or something all of a sudden just like, hey, wait a minute, why am I behind bars? What the hell happened? I had a nice place that I lived in, and I got food whenever I wanted. So
I did a record a while back, and there was a song on it called "The Fourth Dog" that came out from the title came from a Stephen King story, and it was just a real one of those simple little statements like a man's life is 5 dogs long,
right.
and I realized that I was on the fourth dog. Like yeah, that's yeah. So the other thing I think about talking about just being realistic about your career. I remember I saw some meme somewhere. It's like just remember, somewhere in your town, there's a 50-year-old who still thinks they're going to be a hip hop star, a rap star.
Right, right, yeah.
And I'm like, that person might be me. But because it's like I am very realistic about and I'm forever honored and amazed that anybody gives a shit. But sure, if the opportunity come out and go, something blew up and Taylor Swift wanted me to take me on tour, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That real,
Goggles and industrial now, sure, let's go.
yeah. And it's that realism about it. Is it's that I finished up a how I did it book. So
Oh, did you?
yeah, it's finished. It's just I got to draw a couple of sketches in it because towards the end of it is it's just like all right, you guys got to learn how to do a plank or something because you don't realize, but when you start getting to around 40 or 50, you're sitting there at drawing table or whatever, and you are just destroying your body. So you got to learn how to take a break and stretch or something. So yeah, and in it, I talk about it's that kind of concept of that realism is that yeah, man, I see it all the time in groups and stuff like that, and see it at shows, conventions, and stuff like that. That it's like, this guy or this, group of guys or whatever, they did their comic and they're so excited about it, and they bring it over to me and they're like, hey, we're over the table over here, and we're just introducing ourselves, and here's our comic and blah 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 blah, and they're doing their thing and stuff like that, but. It's like I've also seen them where they just like cop this kind of like they're not realistic. And so they want to go to like Wizard World in San Diego, and then they get upset that they go and they got to pay all this money and things like that. I'm just like, I'm sorry, man. You were big fish in your small town, and now you're small fish in the big town.
Hmm.
It's the whole, that's the way it works. No one's going to knock on my door as far as the convention goes. And I've applied at some that I'm just like, I'd be a good fit there. And then they don't return my calls or
Right.
emails or whatever. Just like, well, I'm not going to chase after it either for
Right.
whatever reason. And typically it's money, but that's how the convention is made. That's how the convention makes money. And
Hmm.
so they don't contact me back. It's because they look at us like, well, who the fuck is this guy?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
he's big in New Orleans. Well, we're not in New Orleans. So how are we going to sell tickets putting this guy's name on our flyers and shit like
Hmm.
that? So it's that thing of, yeah, just keep building content, and be content with how your content is. And if someone comes along and knocks on my door and says, "Hey, we'd like you to be a guest at this show," then yeah, absolutely, I'll do it, and it'll be fun and it'll be a great experience. And if they don't, that's fine. I'm still back at the grind. I'm still doing the work.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's that
I
real.
think it's one of those things with social media. Because I've seen, you know, smaller acts, smaller bands or whatever get really cheesed. Like, oh well, why are you playing this? Well, I've been doing this for 20 something years. Why are these bands playing this festival? Why can't we? There should be like they should be required to have local bands play at these things too. It's like, well, they do usually opening up, but like I think people see people they know or have interacted with as peers or whatever without really getting the amount of work that they put into it versus the fact that you've been doing this for 6 months. And,
Right.
like, and it sucks. I hate doing it, stepping in and being kind of like, oh, this is how it really works. I actually had somebody get mad at me once because I used to post these on a regular basis. Welcome to your career in the arts, with
Yeah.
somebody tripping and falling on their face or whatever. And she wrote me and she was like, why do you do this? Why aren't you being more encouraging of younger artists? Why are you just saying how hard why are you just saying it's hard or you're going to fail or whatever? I'm like, okay,
Because,
well, here it
because
is.
it is.
I am encouraging. I will encourage the shit out of you, but eventually you're going to realize, you know, all of the you're going to have this experience, and I'm not never ever going to lie to you and say it is all just sunshine and roses once you make your
Yeah.
first thing, and it's all going to be very easy. Like that is just anathema. Like that the idea of doing that bothers me on such a deep level. It's like, no, I would rather tell you exactly how it is and have you still do it. Because that way you really want to do it. You're willing to deal with all of the bullshit. Then like I'll encourage you, and yes, you're good at what you do, but that's not going to make anything. Being good is like just part of it. So,
Yeah, my beef is when people will say, find what you love and it won't feel like a job. Horseshit.
oh, yeah.
Horseshit. Like I
Find what
said,
you love and let it.
yeah, I just had a character design. I love doing character designs, but I was just like, really, because it was just this mess that so many times I must have restarted that thing at least 6 or 7 times because
Mhm,
I get it to finish and I was just like, that's not it. That's not it.
mhm.
I'm screaming at the table going,
Yep.
it's because it's going to be like that, and that's why when because I was doing the same thing because you were doing the same thing. It's like, here's your career in the arts. It's like, and it's a dog chasing his tail. It's
Right.
like, because that's what it's going to be.
Yep.
And Why haven't, and I'd be more suspicious of someone coming at me saying, why aren't you being more encouraging? I'd be saying, why aren't you being more realistic?
Right.
Do you not have those same kind of things where you're pounding your head against the wall because you're trying to get this piece done
Mhm.
and it's not freaking working? Or you run into the capitalism side of it, and then that's where you got to make that, you got to sell your own soul to yourself
Right.
of, I'm going to do this for this money, and it's not the kind of piece that I normally do. But man, it'd be really nice to pay rent for the
Yeah.
next couple of months, not just month to month. So yeah, I'm suspicious of people that come at me and say those kind of things. It's like, are you really being realistic about this? Why aren't you saying, oh shit, that is totally how it is sometimes?
Yeah. Yeah. Sucking on the shit pipe.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, I'm not, yeah, I'm like you. I'll encourage the fuck out of you, but I'm also not going to lie to you. And that is, if you're not sitting there screaming at your table saying, why isn't this fucking working? Then that's the actual problem. It's not going to
Yeah,
be,
yeah, because that means like there are certain things I'm good at and I can knock out really quick, but there are also those times where I'm like I do a remix for somebody and they're like, "Is it done yet?" I was like, "No, here's the thing. I'll knock one out in a night, or it'll take me a month because I can't figure out what I'm doing with it." And it's
right.
like, you know, and I don't want to give you something that's not good, that doesn't represent either of us well. So yeah, but if you're just kind of able to constantly do that, you're either very good, in which case you get the problems, or you don't understand what those problems are, what your problems, your failing points are. This band I know put out a CD that had like 20 something songs on it recently. And I was like, that's just A, that means they're only like 2 or 3 minutes long, which, if you're a punk band, cool. But B, did you not vet them? Did you not kind of go through and kind of go, okay, let's put our best selves forward. No, because all 24 of them can't be that good.
Right.
Like I mean, I'm sure some of them are great, but maybe go with the 12 good ones.
Yeah.
So
'Cause sometimes I've heard, those albums where they're like, oh, here's the demo track of this track. And you're sitting there saying, oh, I'm glad you guys shelved that. That
right,
is
yeah, yeah. There's a reason that got rejected.
exactly. Yeah. There was a reason that got rejected. And you're sitting there saying, I'm glad you guys did vetted the process and that person didn't get in. So I could see the nuggets
Hmm.
where it was, but I can also see why it didn't make the cut either. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's that again, it's that being realistic about what we do and why we do it. That yeah, if I can get across to anybody, it's that, you can do that one thing really well and you can keep cranking it out really well, but and that doesn't make you any less or more talented than the next guy.
hmm,
But it is a difference between art slash product,
hmm,
and you're just cranking out product. I just had a discussion with some mates about the comic book industry and how they're like, yeah, there are artists that, all they want to do is covers to comics. All they want to do is commissions. They call it the 3 C's: covers, commissions, conventions. And they don't want to do the interiors, which is the actual comic.
right,
So can they call themselves a comic artist, or can they just call themselves an artist?
right,
It's art slash product, and what they're doing is product,
right,
and art is the hard stuff. I'm
right,
sorry, art problem solving. Art is the frustration, and the frustration gets churned into the final product. Like Faith No More again is it's that you can hear how angry they are at one another
mhm,
when they're recording, and it makes the product that everybody loves, and
right.
so yeah, it's that frustration and that anger. It should show in the product when they see it and that they look at it, they're like, wow, man, that came out really good. Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that because it took me 7 tries to
Well, I mean,
get to
that's
that.
why there's so much time between the last Ego album and now, because it's just like we have a or Donna has a very specific idea of what she wants, and getting that right has been, the job for years trying to do so. But even once we know what it is, every single song is a whole fucking thing trying to make it work for her, and get it to work right.
And that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm sorry, kids. Welcome to your career in the arts. Is
Right,
it's
yeah.
that it's that problem solving of it that it's not always unconscious. It's
Right.
not always the song doesn't always write itself. The piece doesn't always draw itself, and sometimes it's like in what I do when I'm doing commissions. It's just it's like doing these quick Sketches is like, no, that's not the pose, and no, this isn't. This is what it is. This is what it's got to be. And I look, I was like 3 hours fucking later. It's like shit, so yeah, it's I don't know. I'm suspicious of people that don't think of that as think of art as easy. It's not. It's
No, I
but
spent like a week
take a
working.
passion.
Normally, I go really fast. I spent a week working on this one painting. Did it once, painted over the whole fucking thing. Did it again, threw it back in the kitchen. I'm going to just paint over it completely because it's just like I something about it. I just can't get it. And
Yeah, it's like I described myself once, and I actually wound up putting it in a photo that someone had taken of me. But they were interviewing me, and they were asking me to describe what I do. And it's like, well, I said I do a comic. I said that maybe like I spend all this time and hours putting the comic together, promoting the comic and working on the next comic, and maybe 200 people read it, and out of those 200 people maybe 190 of them are friends and family.
but
So I am an addict in an abusive relationship. That's what it is. That's what I do. I'm an addict in a self-abusive relationship with that. They were just like, holy crap, that's hardcore. It's like, well, you asked me to kind of nail it down. That's what I do.
yeah, I finished up this record. I'm waiting for it to get mastered. And in the meantime, I did a video for every single song on the record, 9
Right.
videos, and for the same number of people, like however many, and maybe I'll get more by having done this, but so that's the goal. But also, there's a visual component to everything I do, so it's a way of exploring that. But it's still the same kind of like, well, I could just put it out and not do this, but if I do want to try and get more people, then this is the way you do it. Or like when I
Yeah.
did the live studio out in the gallery or in the garage, right before COVID hit, I was sitting there underneath the porch, and I'm claustrophobic as shit, running this Cat 5 cable, and it was raining, and I was like, why am I fucking doing this? And I just stopped, and I was like, because you're the guy that does the shit that other people aren't willing to do in order to like, make things happen. And I was like, yes, you're right. Thank you for appealing to my ego, and went and did the thing. So,
Yeah,
you
I do
do
similar.
have to make
Like,
those
why do I do this
decisions.
for myself? And it's like because this is what it's got to be, and you're so realistic about it that you're just this is what it's got to be.
Well,
So,
and that's
my
why we're
dad,
doing this right now. It's the
yeah,
same sort of thing. It's like, well, I know a lot of interesting people, and that's cool, and I like to talk about all this stuff. But also, it is another way of putting out what I do and getting that out, raising brand awareness.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And,
definitely. And this is what it's got to be. I mean, Dad used to tell me all the time. He's like, "Son, you got two options. You can, piss and moan about it,
right.
or you piss and moan about it. And when you're done pissing and moan about it, go ahead and do it because it's not going anywhere."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the same concept of sitting there, like when students ask me, what do you use? Whatever fucking works.
Yeah.
That's what I.
Yeah. Exactly. Whatever tools available.
And so I might do it, digitally, but this part I like to, it's the only way it's going to work faster or effectively or get what I want is me figure paper on table and actually drawing it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll sit there and curse myself too, but I'll sit there and also say, yeah, but this is what it's got to be.
Hmm.
So you're willing to do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And
Yeah, if it's crawling under the house in the rain in a Cat 5 cable, it's because you're like, yeah, this is also what it's got to be to
right.
get.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, I tell people when people would join the band, I'd be like, look, the shows can't be your carrot, like, because they're going to be shit shows. Like, you have
mhm.
to be totally cool with changing a tire in 0-degree weather in the middle of the mountains in the snow, or any number of other, the bullshit. Like the shows are cool, but the job is all this other stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
That's why I was like, cackling whenever you and I were putting stuff up. It's like, here's your career in the arts. It's like, yeah, it's the bullshit too. You got to be able to do the bullshit. And if you're saying that it isn't the bullshit, then I got a raised eyebrow at you because what are you actually doing then? If you're not,
That
if you're
that one, and don't trust anyone who says I can take you to the next level.
yeah,
I have
thank
never met anybody says that who actually could do it.
exactly. And it's true. I used to tell people, I still tell my students this, like, you want to separate, the people that are real versus the people that aren't is like, ask ask for a contract, ask to see it
Yeah.
in writing,
Yep.
because most people know that that's how business is done. And I've had people come up, it's like, oh, we should do this together, this together, this together. I was like, yeah, that all sounds freaking fantastic. Tell you what, draft something up, draft a real contract up or something like that, outlining what you need me to do, what I'm going to get out of it, and what you get out of it, and then I'll take a look at it, and then we can move forward with it. And you don't hear from them.
Yep.
It's like
Last time that happened, I lent somebody some stuff to use my art in a film. It resulted in me and a friend of mine going to their place with a shotgun to get it back. So
it's yeah, and it's but they never they can take themselves to the next level, whatever that
yeah,
is. The next
yeah. I want to
the
use
next
you to get myself to the next level.
exactly. Yeah, I want to use you to get myself to the next level is the exact harm. And again, and that's part of the arts. So
Mhm.
yeah, your career in the arts. It's going to be you're going to make the mistake, and it's going to be you falling flat on your face, stepping on the rake. As my art teacher used to tell me, he's
And
like,
then you
it's
go,
gonna be
and then you
stepping on the
have to
rake.
get back up. Like that's like it. I mean, I have lost so, and that's all part of the reason I never like really let myself get excited about something until it's actually happening. But I'll have this cool thing, like this cool tour or whatever lined up, and all of a sudden it falls flat, and it's just kind of like, well, okay, there was my A, the thing I was excited about, B, it was a bunch of money I was expecting to make, and a bunch of exposure I was expecting to make in promotion, and now I'm not getting any of that stuff, and I'm just sitting at home. Fuck, like so it's like it's just that shit just is part of it, but you can't let it kill you.
It is. It really is. I've done work for, I mean, I've done concept sketches and designs and stuff for movies that wound up getting made, but not with the people that I was going to be working with.
Right.
And it's sitting here, and it's like I could sit here and say, yeah, that's kind of disappointing. I was excited about working on a Stephen King movie, but it never, the guys that I was working with, a new director comes in, new director puts their own
Didn't
people.
get
Now I'm on the out. And so you're sitting there saying, but it's also part of what we do. So sometimes I step on the rake. Sometimes, the rake is thrown at me off panel and it hits me off camera. So yeah, but it is part of, your career
part
in
of
the
it.
arts.
So. All right. Well, my battery is about to die on this, and it's been 2 hours. Donna was like, you guys are just going to talk all night." And I'm just like,
Pretty
"No, no,
much.
we'll keep it down." So,
No, that's what
but
we do.
thank you so much for doing this, and
Oh, always, baby.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure there's many other topics that we can talk about again. I'll do it in the next season. I'm trying to get like 25 of these in the can, and then putting them all out at once.
Yeah,
Just because I know me, and that will be infinitely easier than committing to having to do it every week. Like I'd
exactly.
rather, you know.
So, as
So,
always, baby, if I can help, let me know.
yes, thank you so much.
Oh, no, thank you, bro. And big hug to Donna, and I'll see you guys soon.
Okay, yeah, actually, we'll be out on the road, and I'm sure Donna will route us down there at some point. She's been
Yeah.
doing all the tour, handling all the booking, which is amazing. It's so nice not having to do that anymore. So yeah, I'm sure she always makes sure to have stops in vacations and things. So,
Yeah, no worries. And she usually will send me a text saying, hey, we're going to be in town on this day and time and stuff like that. Hope we can see you. So, yeah, always, always, always.
all right, man, take care of yourself. Thank you.
Later.